communication network and an informal communication network both exist in an organization, in almost every organization. The formal communication network is basically an official network of communication. It is a communication network which has been specifically designed and communicated for official or organizational communication. On the other hand, informal communication is not something pre-designed. It is not something official. It just happens from time to time, from place to place. Let's see a little more detail of it, starting with formal communication network. Formal communication network can take on two types. The first one is downward communication and the second one is upward communication. We can well see from these words, we can understand what they actually mean. A downward communication is that sort of communication which flows from top to bottom. It means that from top level of the organization to the bottom level of organization, maybe from a managerial source towards a non-managerial target. Now, what are those? What can be the possible communications which flow from top to bottom? Possibly we have certain decisions, because decisions would always flow from top to bottom. The top management would make certain decisions, and it will then be communicated to the bottom. We have orders, we have policies. Now, policy making is the job of top communication. This is why policy making would always flow from top to bottom. On the contrary, upward communication means when information flows from bottom to top, from the lower level to the higher level. So, this from lower level to higher level, this type of communication can be comprised of maybe some problems which needs to be reported, maybe some grievances that the employees have and they want to share with the top level, maybe some performance reports, or it can be anything, right? So formal communication network can basically take two forms: downward communication and upward communication, and these two forms of communication they do exist in almost every organization. Then we have the informal communication network. As we have discussed that this is not some specific channel that has been determined officially for communication. It is something that just happens in any form. This type of communication network is often termed as grapevine or rumor mill. Rumor mill, a place where rumors are made. So sometimes, yes, these type of things happen in an informal communication network. The informal communication network, they happen naturally, and they are mostly the resultant of social gatherings. Now, a social gathering does not necessarily mean a big party of people organized. A social gathering can be something which can happen anywhere. A social gathering can happen at the smoking spots of any office. A social gathering can happen at the water cooler where people are drinking water. A social gathering can happen maybe at the printing place of the office. A social gathering can happen maybe a few friends, a few colleagues hanging out on the weekend. So it can take any form. It can naturally happen. Mostly these are not planned. Informal communication network usually becomes active when the formal network does not provide you the information required, right? When you require certain information and it is not being provided to you by the formal network due to any reason, maybe due to the inefficiency of the network, or maybe due to some sensitivity of the information, or whatever it may be, but when you are not getting the information from the formal network, you will most definitely tend towards the informal communication network, and mostly you will find more or less some information from this network. The next important thing while we are communicating, especially in an organizational context or in any context, is to keep an audience-centered approach. What is meant by an audience-centered approach? It means that You should definitely not keep yourself as a speaker under the spotlight, but the prime importance should always be given to the audience. It involves understanding, respecting, and meeting the needs of your audience. You should well know your audience, you should understand them, you should you should try to know what your audience actually need to hear and what are their information needs, and you should respect them, making all the efforts to make the message meaningful to them. Making an effort to make the message meaningful. If you recall, we have earlier discussed that if you pass on certain information but the listener or the receiver was unable to extract meaning out of it, then communication is redundant, right? So it is also the responsibility of the sender to make all effort so that it can make some sense to the receiver. For example, if you are communicating to a certain person who may not be as of the same level as you are, so in that case you might try to tone yourself down a little bit. For example, if you pick a kid maybe from class 3rd or 4th grade, and then you try to explain integration and derivation to him, so he would totally be lost. Now that does not mean that the person may not be bright, the listener may be a very bright child, but there is a difference. So you need to respect that difference, and you need to make things more easy and more meaningful to the audience. You attitude needs to go, and you attitude needs to be there, and me attitude needs to go, right? We need to get rid of the me attitude. We need to focus on the you attitude. In order to do that, you must learn as much as possible about your audience. You must be aware of their demography. We know what demography means. These are some statistical parameters of human life, like age or literacy or occupation or marital status or gender, and many other things, right? We must be well aware of the psychography of our audience, right? So when we are totally aware of the characteristics of our audience, maybe then we will be in a better position to make things more meaningful to them. The ability to relate needs of other. You should always be able to relate to needs of other people, and this is what is called emotional intelligence, and it is very important, and it plays a key role in communication. Etiquette, definitely the expected norms of behavior in a particular situation. We do have certain etiquettes. These etiquettes may not make any sense if you think about them logically or rationally, but they do exist, and if you do take care of them, it always has a positive impact in any situation, especially in communication and communication in business perspective. Now let's come towards the communication process. Obviously, communication is a formal process, and it has a series of steps. First of all, we should know that communication can fail and meanings can be recreated, which means our objective may not be fulfilled. Somehow, mostly, many times, perceptions do play a role. Perception is something that differs from person to person. Every person might perceive something in a different way, and perceptions are based upon the life experiences, upon knowledge, about personal characteristics, right? So all these things, they shape up your perception, and perception is different from place to place, from situation to situation. There is a very famous elephant story about perception, which explains perception very well. Once there was a village, and an elephant came into that village. Now let's assume it is an assumption that the people of that village, they didn't see an elephant before. They never saw an elephant before, and that elephant came to the village for the very first time. So the elephant was in a dark room, It was night time, it was very dark, so no one could actually see anything. So what the villagers did, they picked a few bright people of their village. They sent those people into that room to inquire what this thing is, just to know what kind of creature or whatever it is. So maybe 4 or 5 people, they went to that room. Obviously they could not see the elephant because there was no light, so they could only touch it. So one person touched its legs, one person touched its trunk, its ears, one touched its tail, maybe, right? So when they all came back, so everyone had a different perception. The person who touched the elephant's ears said that it is a leaf-like thing. The person that touched the trunk of the elephant said that no, it's something like a rope. The person that touched his leg, that person said that it is a tree trunk or something, right? And there were many others as well. So the moral of that story was that whatever you perceive, whatever you see, depends upon where you stand. Now, where you stand, these are the situational differences, these are our experiences, our past knowledge and all these things. So perceptions, they often create a mess while you want to communicate something. So if we are able to understand these steps better, maybe we will be better at communication. Now the basic communication model comprises of these 8 steps. The first one is when sender has an idea. Second, sender encodes the idea in a message. Third, sender produces the message in a transmittable medium. Fourth, sender transmits the message through a channel. The audience receive the message, audience decode the message, then audience respond to the message, and then feedback is sent to the sender. Let's go through every step one by one. The first is sender has an idea. Obviously everything originates with an idea. Maybe it's a conversation, or maybe it's an invention, or maybe it is a certain solution to a problem. So the first step is always ideas, and ideas were very, very important. If your ideas are big enough, if your ideas are heavy enough, if they do make sense, then ideas may be very important. Ideas sometimes can be very big. Facebook was just an idea, but we can see what Facebook has become now. Intermittent car wipers was an idea. Wheel was an idea, which actually revolutionized everything, right? Windows, they were an idea. So all these ideas, initially they were just a small thought in someone's mind, but later on they became one of the major success stories in the world, right? So it always starts with idea when something comes up in mind of the sender. Then the second step is that sender encodes the idea. Obviously an idea that comes into the mind. Now the question arises that how you are actually going to communicate with someone else. So for that purpose we encode that idea into something. Now the word encode may sound something very technical and sophisticated, but it is not. When we are talking, language is also type of an encoding. Whenever we talk, we can talk in English, we can talk in Urdu, we can talk in any language. So when we speak in a certain language, what are we doing? We are actually encoding the idea that we had in our mind into those words, into that language. And the same happens when a receiver receives that code, he decodes it and he gets the meaning out of it, right? So communication can be as simple as a smile. Now smile is also kind of an encoding, right? Or it can be very complicated as a whole advertisement campaign. The next step is that the sender produces the message in a transmittable medium. Now what is a medium? Medium means what form your message actually takes. As I have said that if we speak, we are speaking. Now speaking is a transmittable medium, right? Maybe we have an idea and we make a tweet out of it on Twitter, right? This would be into putting it into a transmittable medium. Maybe we make a Facebook post, or maybe we make a post on Instagram. Maybe we display a billboard somewhere outside. It can be anything. Not a billboard, sorry. Maybe we make a certain YouTube video out of it. So these are different transmittable mediums through which we can send our message and through which we can give our message to other people. The next step is transmit medium through a channel. Now I'll just mention it that the difference between medium and channel is a bit hazy, a bit unclear, a bit confusing at times. These are more or less the same things, but medium, as we have already discussed, is the form that a message takes, like a Twitter tweet, but channel is the tool that we use for it, right? We want to put a tweet on Twitter. Now that is a medium, but what is the tool we are going to use for it? Maybe a mobile phone, maybe a laptop, maybe we want to display an advertisement, a colorful advertisement. Now the colorful advertisement is a medium, but the channel would be to display it on a billboard, right? Or maybe to put it on some other digital channel. So what happens? The sender produces a message in a transmittable medium, and then number 4, transmit the message through a channel so that it can reach to the audience. At number 5, the audience receive that message. At number 6, it decodes it, right? First, the sender encodes it. The idea is encoded into words, or maybe in a picture or in a video or anything. Then the receiver sees that video. Then the receiver reads those words or sees that picture, and then that meaning is acquired from it, right? In the 7th step, the audience will respond in one way or another, and the last step is the feedback. Feedback is then provided to the sender. Feedback can be of many types. It can be positive, it can be negative, right? So this was all about today's lecture. I hope we will have a good session, a good question answer sessions in our live session. Quote of the day is in front of you. It is a brilliant quote. Read it and definitely try to implement this in your lives. Have a good day. Thank you.